tradition this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. And love and tradition of the grand design, some people say is even harder to find.
All right. Well, welcome to the 15,000th. First episode of
our new name.
On location.
Yes, we are on location. So we are on location at one of our newest listings, which is something we're going to try now, right? As next week we're at this week we're at 112 Madera Court, 112 Madera Court. That's very close to my heart. It's a little bittersweet here. This is my in-laws' house that they built actually back in the early 80s. Kids were raised here and everything, and life goes on. It's time to pass it on to somebody else. So cool property. I think we saw Ben jumping in the pool last time, and we are currently now on the market. Had a great open house this last weekend. Go through one more weekend and get it sold. We are, 5,700 square feet on an acre at $4.995 million. And it's a beautiful house. So great little change that we're doing here, having these podcasts at our listings. Next week, we have an incredible one at 220 Highland Oaks. It'll be a little different than this one.
Might need a tetanus shot walking in there. Or,
maybe, but that's okay. Just shows that all things real estate. We do all things real estate. So,
we are not all things real estate.
Segue into...
We used to be all things real estate.
We were.
So,
now,
with
my great honor, I present to you...
Hold on. All right, go ahead.
Unlocking Silicon Valley.
Ooh.
That's what won.
That's what won on
That was
all
the
of our
poll.
posts.
Hey, where's our soundboard guy? Aren't we supposed to have all that?
Jake.
I just gave it to you, ready?
There you go. There you go. All right, so what's the name? Unlocking Silicon Valley.
Unlocking Silicon Valley.
Unlocking Silicon Valley.
But as usual, we will be talking about all things real estate inside of this
Like a
podcast.
door's unlocked.
We will be talking about all things real estate as we unlock Silicon Valley. While we keep it real.
Here we go.
Well, there's a lot of brick and banter.
There's a lot of brick and banter going on. I can't hear out of this one.
All right, so bringing it back, yes, we are in one of our new listings at 112 Madera Court. We had been jumping in the pool last time. I think Jeet was sexing it up there with his Photoshop in the primary bedroom there. I think Aaron was getting a nice little workout going on. Jason was throwing some bocce balls.
The shot put ring.
A lot of oyster
That's
shells.
what it
A lot of
is.
oyster
And,
shells.
Olympic caliber.
Mr. David John Bruno was here on the putting green, so a lot of fun things you can do with
Hasn't
this
made a
property.
putt since.
It's probably true. He hasn't been on the putting green since.
Mark was at the bar.
I was at the bar.
Never left.
Make it a martini.
I love my martinis. So where's the market at? Who's got some stats here?
I got some stats here for
Let's
us
do
on
it.
the market. Total, off-market, including on-market and off-market, we're looking at about 1,700 single-family homes. If we're looking at strictly just
Oh, shut up.
on-market.
There's no way that's a correct
townhome
number.
condos and single-family homes. That's
You
what I
should
call.
restart it so you can get a clip.
Yeah, edit
That's a good-
that.
that's a good
Jesus
call.
criminy, dude.
Currently in our market, we're sitting at about 1,700 total plus minus single-family condos, townhomes. If we're looking at just single-family homes here in the area, we're a little over 800, and we have about 250 off-market properties that are still available to the public that they
So, I
can
mean, as a total of 1,700, that's actually getting to be a pretty big number compared.
Yeah, we were under
in
1,000
comparison,
for a
right?
long time.
It would be interesting to see how long those condos and townhomes are sitting.
So I have something to say.
Is this on the subject of
No.
stats?
Yeah,
You
he's
go
got
out.
something to say. You hear that? Sorry.
Let's go. Let's hear something
Yeah.
relevant here. We're waiting.
And that is in 2008, 2009, there was 5,000
Yeah,
single family homes.
that's crazy.
5,000.
So if people think that
crazy.
the market's going to go down to that extreme measure, I would say probably not going to happen.
No, not
I
for a
just
while.
don't ever see it
So
happening.
I do have a question though, because now it's something that we haven't had to do. We just started doing it the last couple of years. Is the coming soon part of this, right? I'm curious to see how has that impacted the numbers, if it has at all, right? I mean, because I know as agents, we have a lot of agents now throwing properties out there and coming soon to kind of test the market with the other agent community and stuff like that. Do you think that's increased our inventory, or maybe decreased the activity market to kind of just keep things to the side? What do you guys think that's done?
I got a client into contract. So there was a property on the market on the street, and we were looking at it for 175. And this agent had just posted earlier that morning. I was about to write an offer, and she had posted a property coming soon, same layout, slightly worse condition, listed slightly lower. And my client's like, I like that more. Let's go check it out. And we got into contract that evening. She's like, I didn't expect us to get into contract in 2 hours of getting this thing on the market. So I think coming soon
First of all,
properties.
back up.
Wait,
It wasn't
wait.
on the market.
It wasn't.
But
So
they
it
were
wasn't
looking at a
coming soon.
property that was on the market. That was the
Correct,
same
but
way.
he's saying that there's. So basically, what I want
You
people to-
interrupted him, so I didn't know what he was saying.
I was trying to get to the point of the fact that nobody else besides Jeet and real estate agents knew because it wasn't actually on the market, right?
That's correct.
It was, like, coming
off
soon.
market.
It was
in,
coming soon.
It was in coming soon status.
So like you couldn't see it on Redfin or Zillow or
Right.
things like that. So
Right.
you have to work with someone. To my point, sorry
Yes.
for his rude interruption.
That was a
Jeet,
great
was
point.
that you as a MLS wizard were able to see that it was coming to the market,
Absolutely, and
but
we
the
got it
average
early.
agent probably wouldn't even have noticed.
And what
Yeah,
is
someone that's not
what's
hands-on.
MLS?
Multiple listing service.
Oh, MLS. MLS. Gotcha. Okay.
What if you didn't go to the bar so much downstairs? You would have heard me.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I think the coming soons do truly
So
help.
well, it helps
we can take
the
advantage
buyer.
of.
How is it benefiting the seller?
They got a quick sale. They were
I
trying
think
to.
it's the dumbest thing you can do, truthfully.
Well, I mean,
Unpack that.
Do you think you got a deal?
yes.
Yeah, well, he represented the buyer,
Yeah,
of course.
so good for you. Like, good for our team.
And he got
Yeah.
less
If
than...
it was your listing, would you have taken it?
No.
I will add on to that. I got a buyer contract last month. Same thing. Was on the coming soon. Right when it hit the market. My buyer didn't even see the home. We wrote the contract, got accepted. Then they saw the home, stayed with it. But then the home that sold on that same street 2 weeks later, that hit the market, and went through open houses, went for 130 grand higher.
Ooh.
So to answer your question,
Well,
maybe not.
I got to tell you, I am not for off-market listings. For one,
It presents no clarity.
well, plus I want to make sure that myself and my client can sleep well at night, knowing that we didn't leave money on the table. The only way that you can ensure you're not leaving any money on the table is by putting it out there to everybody to bid for it and look at it. When you're just selling it to one or two buyers,
You know when the price is stupid.
I mean, I think then again though, it depends on the
The
situation
situation,
of
yeah.
the seller.
If
the
have
seller-
2 more days of a rent back or 1 more day of a 1031, and
Well, it also helped that the property that I went after that was on the coming soon and then went live for an hour, that the family who was living in it was super sentimental and emotional about the home sale. They took the buyer's letter into consideration. They wanted it.
you had a
So,
buyer letter.
I did too.
You got to do what you got
had
to
a
do.
buyer letter?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
hey, when you're on the buyer's side, get a buyer letter.
You gotta try to play
And the
everything.
the seller's agent presented the buyer letter.
Yeah.
I
mean,
don't know.
Wow, because there's
I-
a full page about discrimination advisory. That'd be really
Hey,
crazy.
Well, but keep in mind on the listing contract, you can elect to if the seller can elect if they want those presented or not.
Do you present buyer letters?
No, I don't really want to. and I'll tell you why. Because our job is to ensure our client gets the highest amount of dollar possible
So
for
what
their
if
asset.
you're-
I don't want them to be.
So what if your seller's like, hey, who are these people? And they have a letter. Do you say, oh, well, they wrote you a letter?
Well, I mean, listen. If the buyer's given to me, I have to be transparent with my client. I'll let them know, hey, there is a buyer letter in there if you want to see it, right? And there are sometimes we come across clients where they're like, hey, I want to make sure that this goes to a, you got to be careful with it, right? Like if it goes to a young family, well, all of a sudden now you're discriminating against anybody who doesn't have kids, right? And thus the reason why we're advised. Public service announcement here. We're advised not to do or review.
Previous
buyer's
to
letters.
you guys being in the business, maybe 8 years ago, for anyone listening, coming soons were a thing.
We have a lot of people listening.
Selling off market was still a thing, but it was the wild, wild west
Yes.
because it was unregulated. So it was like I was reaching out to you, and I was reaching out to you, calling you, hey, dude, it was so great seeing you at the poker night tournament the other night. Like you mentioned, you had a couple properties that were coming soon. What were those?
Yeah.
And then they would let me in, and if there was just like a straight number, he would sell it to me.
Right.
But now there's rules and regulations as to how you have to.
Well, but you can still do that. I mean, you can as long as you see it on the database.
But
If
it's-
you see it out there.
Correct. But now everyone has access, right?
True.
Whereas like I went to every single networking event, and I knew so many properties that were coming soon.
I think there's a difference between knowing that there's properties coming on and having the resources and the connections to make it happen. I mean, you can look at 250 off-market properties, but I
Right.
guarantee you there are other agents in this industry who do not have the relationships that we have with those agents
Well, and-
to get us in or to even present an offer. Like you said, you don't present off-market offers. Like if you got an offer
no.
within 1 hour of
No.
going active,
Never.
you would have saved it, waited till the weekend,
100%.
presented later. But relationship with the agent, you push that a little bit, and there's some flexibility.
Well, to your point, it is those relationships, right? I mean, there's still knowledge. I don't know if this is wrong to say or not. There's still knowledge that we have of upcoming listings that aren't in the database.
Yeah.
Right?
But what if your seller had a number in mind and you got that exact same number and they had a 1031 exchange lined up?
We'll see, situational. And
Right.
Well,
what
it
we
is
mean. It's all
situational, but to your, my advice is always going to be for my client to let me get it out there on the open market. Let me have 13,000 other agents out there and every buyer in the world out there looking at your property to ensure that we get the highest dollar possible. And if you're on a time crunch where you need to know in the next 2 days, let me get it out there right now, and I will blast it out to every person on this earth who's looking for that type of property, and I'll ensure they get the top dollar possible for their property. Anything other than that, how can you confirm? I mean, if the people in this room are the only ones who know that a house is on the market, and I'm willing to buy it at what the seller wants, well, you've always
Without
got,
demand, there's
right.
nothing.
I love it. Say it again.
Without demand, there is nothing.
Wow.
Perfect example. My client across the way from me here, Jason D'Amico, flipped a house.
Who's now a
and-
coworker.
Yeah, flipped a house.
Teammate.
We had like 10 offers or something. We're just sitting at dinner, and I was like, "Yeah, you want to see how crazy this is?" When the demand is through the roof, you get 10 grand here, 20 grand here. You know, we're eating spaghetti, and that, you know, people are coming up 15, 20 grand here.
That was my favorite part. I'm like, can we just go to dinner and let me listen to the phone calls? Like, yeah. So I'm slurping
There you go.
spaghetti, and he's like, da 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 da. But it was on.
But without leverage and demand, you kind of a fish without water.
But how many
100%.
sellers did you get? I guess again, situational. They're just like, get rid of my house. I don't care. I'll pay for convenience, or I'll take the
I've
discount.
only had that once.
Yeah, I don't get a lot of those. Mostly everybody needs that money to move on to the next chapter of their life. There are those situational scenarios, life events where, you know, I mean, let's face it, I mean, and those life events get narrowed, right? So if it's somebody where somebody passed away, you have to do your fiduciary duty. The trustee has to do their fiduciary duty to ensure they put it on the market to expand it to every buyer that's out there. Now, you know, maybe if it's a divorce situation or you've got a famous individual you're dealing with, they don't want it to be out there. I can understand where convenience might be a factor to it. But in 99% of the situations, it's how much money I can get for my house, because that's going to fund the next chapter of my life.
100%.
Yeah.
Cool.
So let me ask you this. What separates you guys from the typical agent on the street in finding the right property for your buyer? What do you do differently?
I talk them out of what they think they want.
Oh, give me an example of that. What do you mean by that?
Well, buyers are liars and sellers are worse, generally speaking. And I don't mean that
Hey,
rude.
can we edit that?
I don't mean that rude, but a lot of times buyers in the initial from the initial point that you guys sit down, talk it through of what you want to the point that you actually end up buying the house, it's so different.
Right.
Like
right.
that house that you described to me on our initial meeting is very different most of the time than
Fair
what
enough.
you're buying, right? So I think
So it starts in your consultation with them.
starts in the consultation of just bringing them back to not becoming emotional. Like, I'm totally good if you guys don't buy the house. Like, I sell enough houses
Well, you
where
bring up a good point. I've always said the best way to buy a house is to remove the emotions from the transaction.
my leg's asleep.
That's what sexy legs they are, man.
Thanks, man.
They're a lot skinnier than they used to be.
it's a couch. You're not sitting on the floor.
He's sitting on his ankles.
His
I
giggles?
was kind of
You had the Jessica pose.
Jeez.
Oh, come on now.
Jessica sits on her feet.
Okay.
Do you
that's
not know how
great.
to wink?
Hey, can we go back to what you
Try
do?
to wink. Oh,
I do.
Let's go back to what you do for your buyers. So you have a great consultation, really expand upon what they're looking for, narrow it down.
yeah, narrow it down, but also just making sure that they don't overpay, right? Like, sometimes you have to tell them, like, hey, this house is going crazy. It's not a 9 out of 10 for you. Like, let it go.
You tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear.
Yeah. Well, I like that when you say 9 out of 10, right? Because you sit your buyer down, tell them, hey, make the 10 checklist of the items that you want, and know that you're going to be lucky to get 6 or 7 of them. You're not
If you
going to
can
find
find
10.
an 8, you should buy the house.
Oh, eight's incredible.
Oh, if you find an 8, it's coming with 10 other offers on that table.
So, boys,
Good luck.
we did the open houses here. What kind of buyers were coming to a $5 million house?
NVIDIA employees.
NVIDIA
All of them.
employees.
That was the
Yeah,
first
employees.
one that came
Yeah,
through.
so that's a common question we get all the time. Who's going to be buying the house, right?
Yeah.
And keeping up with the current events of what's happening in Silicon Valley, I think is huge, right? So NVIDIA just split 10-1. It's had this incredible wave ever since Nancy Pelosi went all in and bought a ton of it. And now all of the buyers are coming out of the woodworks to buy high-end, low-end. I just represented someone from NVIDIA. Every one of your clients was from NVIDIA. So
Absolutely.
They're buying homes just to keep as investments, and I'm saying that as not to rent it out, but we met people who literally own homes in Los Gatos who have not touched them or walked inside of them in over a decade. They're just sitting there. They don't want to be landlords. They have enough money, and they're just letting it roll over and roll out.
We just visited a guy like that.
He lives right by our old office, and he's like, yeah, I don't live here.
Yeah. He goes, I bought this 10 years ago. He's a C-suite guy from one of the big tech companies in town. And bought this 10 years ago. Kind of too big for me, so I bought a condo down the street, and we're more comfortable there.
But when you have that money and you let it ride, you're just making more money off
It's
of
more
it.
money than just pissed off at money.
Sorry.
People pissed off at money. There you go.
I tried to segue into what I was saying, but then I realized I totally...
You asked a question and then answered
Yeah,
your own
so, like,
question. Hey, Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this.
So anyways, what separates you from being a buyer's agent?
Well, I'm going to piggyback on you, actually. I think it's just being transparent with my buyers. I mean, again, there's been multiple occasions where you meet buyers for the first time, whether it's at an open house, and they have a thought of what they're looking for. And you go through the whole process with them, and you end up in a completely different path. Why? Because it's better financially for them in the future, and depending on their situation, it could work better.
Well, it's a process. It's
process.
advising them through the whole process.
Because
right?
I mean, again, in real estate, buyers have the accessibility to look at Redfin, Zillow. They can see properties anywhere, walk into any property they want now with open houses, and more than likely just sign the contract with the listing agent who's holding the open house. But as agents and advisors,
Right.
we protect liabilities. We provide information that they don't have, and we provide numbers that they need to not only get into this home, but to live in it comfortably throughout the forthcoming years.
Well, and I like what Aaron said, where you almost talk them out of the house, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's so many agents where they get excited when their buyer gets excited about a house because it's either the commission or they're wanting to be able to move on to the next transaction, right, and close it out. Where we'll tear that property apart. We'll make sure it's the right property for our client, not just through the inspections, but everything, to where it's not just like, oh, great, they love the house, let's write up the offer and be done with it. Let's make sure that it's the right property for our client, of why they came to us in the first place.
Yeah.
Jason?
Piggybacking on all that.
Dang, I can't lift all of you.
His legs are already asleep.
He's punching his thigh while you're talking. Like, hey, it's a little distracting.
It's a testosterone shot. You know, he missed it today.
Damn.
Wow.
Oh, what are team members for?
Exactly. I have two things: life experience and actually going through the process
Yeah.
myself.
Yep.
So prior to getting my license, like I did, it's my own personal houses and then investments, probably 30 deals before coming
Wow.
on KW. And working with realtors, working with multiple different kind of realtors.
Interesting.
And hey, this is where I was, like, newly married. That was me. We're looking for our first house, like, been there. Looked for a year. One of the agents got frustrated with us.
Yeah.
Because we told him what we wanted. Hey,
Right.
this is what we're looking for. But by the time it was done, we got this. But that's just how you don't know without going through the process.
Right.
And great human that guy was, but he got a little impatient. We essentially broke up. And then I meet the next person, and this guy ends up getting 8 deals out of it. My entire family. Referral. Just being a little
So
patient.
you said you did about 30 transactions prior to getting into the business yourself. Were these flips? Were these long-term holds?
So probably 3. I've moved 3 times, like, myself.
Okay.
Had some rentals, so some buy and holds.
Right.
And then probably 20 flips.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Last year.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I was in a different market. I was in Tennessee.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I did 18 deals there, and then we did 3 in San Jose right before I left.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So been through it. So life experience. So I've been there on the newly married side. I've been there on the investor side. I've been there where, out of all those deals, maybe 2 deals were just like smooth sailing, just super easy, no issues. So knowing that, hey, speed bumps are going to come.
Yeah.
And we know how to deal with them.
You know, it's funny. I kind of chose real estate for the same reasons. Dee Dee and I were going through looking for different houses, and we realized, I think we went through like 3 or 4 agents because nobody was listening to us, right? And the reality was nobody sat down with us and had the conversation we needed to have to make that realization with it. So I think definitely having that experience. And one thing I'll always say that I think everybody should do really in the business, we should have to buy or sell a property every 2 years to know what our clients go through.
2
Just the
years?
fact-
One house?
Well, because you forget about it.
You forget.
If you have to, like, I just had to move everything out of my house.
Yes.
yourself. Be the principal.
Yourself.
Yeah, it
right. I'm sorry,
sucks.
not for our clients, but for ourselves.
Moving is not fun.
Oh, it's a pain in the.
However, I have found the hack. And that is getting packers.
Oh, 100%.
So not movers.
Oh, you get the movers too, but
Packers.
they come in, they label all your boxes, they wrap everything, they
Hey.
put it in. It's not exactly cheap.
We got a
We-
great
we have
organizer.
got the great-
We got a great organizer.
Fong, who we use, Good Man Moving, I think is the name of his company.
Goodman Movers.
Is the greatest. Comes in, packs everything out. Bubba wraps the hell out of stuff and charges a very fair rate, and he'll move you all the way to Tennessee, anywhere you want to go.
So Jay, being a part of 30 transactions, what was like the thing where you're like, oh god, and then that agent blew up the transaction, like he botched it. Like you would have, if you were an agent at the time, you would have saved it or you would have saw it coming.
Yeah.
What's something dumb?
What's something dumb? I think just getting emotional and not taking in the information, taking a breath and going, okay, like where this on the big deals is it? Something pops up in title that didn't initially hit, or oh no, there's it's a sister and another sister are all like signing on this one too, and we don't know where she is, and they're not speaking to each other. Things like that.
So how could the agent have done something better?
Done something better. It's just be patient and like knowing. It's I think what's hard is a lot of people are very like, at least kind of my personality is like, I want this done now. I want this like over. But sometimes it's going to take like, hey, we just need to put it on the back burner. Let it kind of marinate.
So
for
be
a
the
while.
messenger.
Be the,
I think it has to be the conductor. You've got to be the conductor of the orchestra. And your job is to make sure that you know everybody's going to screw up at one time or the other, prepare for it. And so when it does happen, you don't panic. And I think that's what a lot of agents do. They get that anxiety in them. And you can't, again, you got to remove the emotions from the transaction.
I think a lot of agents react quick too. And so, like you said, instead of taking it
how many
in, finding a
times-
solution before just
Guys,
acting on it.
Yeah.
How many times do we have to have a conversation in my office where we've talked to an agent, the agent's blown up about something very stupid, something random, something small, and they're acting worse than any client out there.
But I will say, most of the time, the reason that they're doing that, just it's a little rude, but is because they don't sell very many houses.
Right.
So
They're
to
ba-
them,
they're banking
on
this
it.
transaction is so important.
Listen, I've always said the
Yeah.
great news in Silicon Valley is for agents, you don't have to sell a lot of homes to make a lot of money. The bad news is you don't have to sell a lot of homes to make a lot of money, because we have agents out there that sell 10 or 12 homes a year and they make their 200, 300 grand and they think they're God's gift to real estate.
Well, like what Aaron's saying too, like the stress that all these agents have is like when they start to blow up, and it causes stress for the buyer and for the seller.
That's what they
Like,
don't understand.
Even
We're fine.
we're fine.
You
Yeah.
can say whatever you want.
But then it just rolls over, and then you're creating unnecessary stress for other people in the transaction that don't need the stress on it.
Well-
Again, as an agent, before you go to a client or even the other side, if there's an issue,
Figure out the solution.
come with a solution
Yes.
for it. Don't just start acting, putting your buyer in stress, thinking they're not going to be able to
Well,
close on
that's-
time, a seller's not going to be
What
able to.
is the goal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I love is when something kind of pops up at 6 o'clock at night on a Thursday night, right? Listen, I'm going to suck it up, and before I call my client, because I'll have the sleepless night over it. I'm not going to have my client have the sleepless night over
Exactly.
it. And I want to make sure that I do have a solution in place before I call my client
I mean,
up.
how often does that happen too? And then the next morning you get a call from that agent.
And it's
I
resolved.
figured it out.
It's
Like,
resolved.
see that? Just wait
Right.
12 hours to
Right.
respond.
It
Let them marinate over
doesn't mean
what
that
they
we're not-
texted you.
It doesn't mean that we're not sharing, critical information with our client. It just means that we're going to bring, in a timely manner,
Yeah.
we're going to bring the solution. We're going to investigate it before having them flip out about it to having an open-ended situation.
yeah, I don't have enough information to relay this to you yet.
Right.
It's hearsay or it's just words. Let me investigate, and then I'll deliver it when I think it's
It's like
appropriate.
they feel it's necessary
Yep.
to share what they think.
Yep.
It's like,
All
just
right,
think
I want to hear from Jeet. Jeet, what separates you from
Popcorn
the...
Jeet.
Popcorn Jeet.
Watch your leg. I don't want it to fall asleep.
Relax.
You know what I'm saying.
So what separates
Popcorn
you
Ben.
Can you say it on Australian?
from the typical agent?
Yeah, can you say it in
So-
Australian?
Good day, mate. So, piggybacking off of every.
My back hurts.
Jeez, I already carry
But-
all the weight.
No, there's a couple of things. I think we touched on everything pretty well, but I think a couple of things is education, right? Like we educate our client throughout the journey, because a lot of the people it's their first home, right? They
Right.
have absolutely no idea what goes into it, and I think we have a good team with our lending partner, Escrow, right? Like where we have a team situation. They know they are going to be handled, they're going to be taken care of throughout the whole process. if they have any questions. Like, we are hand-holding them throughout the whole process, right? And then the second thing is communication, right? Having top-notch communication throughout the process, knowing what everyone's going to do at what time, and also having that access that they can they have access to me 24/7. I don't have kids. I'm not
we
married.
learned that with your burnout last year. Where's G? Oh, I'm so tired. I've worked 80 hours this week.
Hey, that happens. That
If
happens.
you want
but
to
I
work
come
with
back.
someone that will answer at 1 a.m., G is the guy
That's
on
right.
the team.
That's right.
Yeah, I had a client once. He texted me at 11:30, and he's like, "Oh, I can't believe you replied,
You replied
like
back?
instantly."
Well, you text
and
me.
Yeah, and then at 6:30 a.m. he's like, "One more thing," and I was like, "Dude, when do you sleep?" Right?
Yeah, right.
And because I woke up early that day, and I texted him right away. He's like, "When do you sleep?" I'm like, "Dude."
I don't sleep. You don't sleep.
Isn't
don't-
it crazy
we don't
though with
sleep.
how much we can communicate with our buyers, and then when we don't get any communication on the other side from the sellers,
Yeah.
it
Oh, no,
puts us in
sensitive
such
subject.
it puts us in
Sensitive
such an
subject.
awkward situation. Like, how do you relay to your listen, we're getting no help from the other side. Like, it makes everything that you do just start to.
I send them screenshots of everything I'm doing. Like sometimes when the agent doesn't respond,
that's
I'm like,
good.
"Hey, here's my first text, second text, third text, no response." And I'm like, "I've tried calling them, no response." But I send them an email as well, and finally the agent picked up or whatever. So I'm showing them that, hey, I'm trying my best,
Right.
And eventually the other agent will hopefully
So
follow through.
I'll tell you from my background, being a managing broker and having over 500 agents underneath me and probably several thousand that have worked for me, what I see what you guys possess that the average agent doesn't have is the drive and the dedication, not just to this business and your passion for this business, but the dedication you guys have for your clients. Nobody on our team has commission breath. Nobody. I mean, we are challenged every day to make sure that when we go out to work for our client, to either get them the highest dollar for their house or the best property for their money or for their needs. You guys do that better than anybody.
Hell
and that's
yeah.
why
Thank you.
I'm extremely proud to be part of this team and lead it as well. You guys do a great job. Oh, you guys, man.
Hey.
Props to you guys.
After managing 500 people and having thousands of agents, what's like the most silly lawsuit? Like, what's the most common thing that you see that
Oh,
the agent
Jesus,
could?
really?
It doesn't have to be like a big thing, but like
I'll tell you-
non-disclosure.
No,
or,
I'll tell you the most
like, what
BS
is-
thing I see is when agents battle agents. This whole crap where they start going to like, who has the, that was my client. What the hell is it called?
Procuring costs.
Procuring cause, right? Which
We
is
got
an
in trouble for
unbroken
that
chain
once.
of events. You have to prove that client's been yours since day one. And guess what, guys? If the client wants to fire your ass, they're going to fire your ass. If the client's going to work with somebody else, there's a reason why they're working for somebody else. I'd say that's the most asinine thing I see is when agents fight among each other over stupid stuff like that. But I mean, some of the most ridiculous lawsuits are where people get caught up on, they're stepping over pennies, right, to save dollars. I mean, where it's just ridiculous. I mean, people need to realize, I think Jason and I had this conversation the other day. Any client out there, buyer, if you're buying a house, it's like buying a car. You're buying a used product. You're buying a used car, you're buying a used house, you buy a used car, you're going to probably put away $1,000 into new tires, brakes, whatever it is. Same thing with a house. There's going to be a reasonable amount of money you got to put into that property. So don't freak out because there's nail holes in the thing or, there's a little squeaky hardwood floor or something. That's just goes with the territory.
So sellers, at least in this area and probably California, have to provide the seller property questionnaire and the transfer disclosure statement.
Correct.
How do you advise a seller after doing this for as long as you to disclose everything? Like, what's the conversation that you have with anyone thinking about selling?
Well,
a
you
house?
can never over disclose.
Okay.
You really can't. I mean, I always say, listen, you want to look at it as if when the buyer moves into that property and they start talking to your neighbors, what are your neighbors going to tell them?
Was
right?
there a murder on the
Yeah.
street?
I mean, on the other hand, you're only going to disclose as much as you know because some of our sellers will overanalyze the situation. It's like, okay, listen, just disclose to your best of your knowledge. That's what the form says, to the best of your knowledge, and then everything's open to interpretation, right? I mean, I might be a dog lover, and my dogs bark with the guy's dogs barking next door, and to me, that's not a nuisance, right? Because that's one of the questions in the TDS. However, the guy moving back into the house after me might be a cat person. Who knows? They don't like dogs, and that dog next door is barking, and to them that's a nuisance. So it's just opening up your mind a little bit, but also disclose to the best of your ability.
What if you know there's an issue and you don't, like an issue with
Like a
plumbing
disturbing
or
neighbor.
like a leaking
You
toilet?
you better disclose
and
it.
you
or-
don't disclose it.
Or
Then
a
what can
perfect,
happen?
perfect example is, let's say you've got a pool, and normally with pools or services on the property, you're going to use the same vendor, right? Because the owner's going to give you a vendor or the person that comes out. if you got a pool guy that comes out to the buyer and they say, oh, hey, you know what? Yeah, there's been a leak on this pool forever. The sellers knew about it. You better disclose something like that, right?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I've heard this before where
Yeah.
where they
but
say
I'll
like,
tell you what I love. It's the same thing when I what I love is when you have an agent walk into the house and they say, I'm wondering if I should disclose this. Or the same thing with the seller. Should I disclose this? If you've got to ask that question, disclose it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think thinking it's going to blow up the deal is like, because that's
Right.
probably why you would hide.
Fear-based. It's fear-based,
oh my gosh,
short-sightedness.
It's like, yeah.
I'd rather have all of that up front. That's the whole reason why we do inspections up front, right?
Hey,
Get everything on the table.
Yeah.
Get it out there so the buyer can be well-educated before they give you an offer.
In the same breath, buyers do forget things. They don't always know how everything works.
Well, I'll tell you the problem.
It's to the best of your knowledge.
Totally, but in today's world, they get sent all this information in
Yeah.
DocuSign, click, 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 and they don't read everything. And then after the fact, it's
If
like,
you're
oh.
sitting in front of a judge, are you going to have the same answer? If yes, then
Well, that's why I know nobody in this team does it, but it drives me nuts with DocuSign where agents just send it over and don't have that consultation where they walk through every single thing to where they really understand what they're clicking on, right? So technology is a wonderful thing, but we got to manage it the proper way.
hell yeah.
I have a question here. Last month,
So I was just thinking.
last month we were talking about the market slowing down as we entered June. Mm-hmm. Does anybody else feel like it's picking back up right now? Like we're kind of hot
It
again.
lulled the last 14 days.
3 weeks maybe.
Well, it's
And that's-
graduations.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for everyone who's been listening to us and for all the real estate news you've been hearing,
A lot of people have been listening to us.
thank you. I think it's picking back up personally.
But
More inventory's coming
it's
on, more
situational
buyers
to
are
our
out there.
area.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the stats across the nation, price decreases are on the rise right now. There's more price decreases than there's ever been before. Inventory's on the rise more than they've ever been before. Foreclosures are on the rise like they've never been before. And that's across the nation. We are in this wonderful bubble called Silicon Valley, and we've learned how to unlock it.
Oh,
Drop the mic, right?
Damn.
everyone throw 'em.
Oh, that's crazy, Cody.